Welcome back to r/LegalAdvice, where people ask questions, get advice, and we get satisfaction. If you are new around here, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel to join our awesome community, and without any further ado, let's dive right into the stories. And the first one is titled, "My elderly father was laid off in a position elimination 3 weeks ago. 24 hours ago they posted that they are hiring for the same position. Hi all, need a bit of guidance here. I am writing this on behalf of my dad. 3 weeks ago he received a call from HR letting him know that he's being laid off due to his position being eliminated. I work in HR and probed him for a bit more info. He forwarded me the emails from his HR rep, which indicated that about 80 employees were impacted. My dad just turned 65 and the other employees impacted that he's aware of are older. I asked him to ask his HR rep for a list of impacted ages and positions. Based on the information provided from him, it seems his HR department would be required to send this over according to the Older Workers Benefit Protection Act. The HR rep explained that this was not a large-scale layoff and that each layoff was an individual situation, unsure what this means, and that this was a position elimination. He asked her again through email and she again said no. About an hour ago we saw that his position, incredibly similar yet reworded, was posted. He signed his severance agreement 2 days ago and it appears that it was posted immediately following. He has 7 days to retract his agreement. If it is relevant, my dad was basically a superstar at his job and received glowing performance reviews. Really looking for advice here. My dad is at a loss. Thank you. Edit. We will be reaching out to lawyers tomorrow. Thank you to everyone that contributed and continues to contribute. We appreciate all the advice that is coming in." And a user in the comments said, "Employment lawyer here, but in CA. I cannot give you advice on MA law, but federal law protects him here. I'm not surprised they didn't give you that info. Keep a copy of the job posting. Call an employment lawyer in your area, have your dad make a timeline of events in his employment in the meantime. Like others said, don't let him retract the severance until you have talked to the lawyer." And guys, I'm wondering, have you ever been laid off from your job for BS reasons? Let us know in the comments. Update to the elderly father's story. Unfortunately, this is not going to be the update everyone was looking for. We did work with a lawyer who felt similarly to everyone here that he was taken advantage of. My dad waived the severance agreement and the lawyer sent a demand letter for what he felt was an appropriate amount. They came back and said no and to pound sand. My dad was already stressed enough and did not want to bother with litigation. The only silver lining is that the company agreed to honor my dad's original severance agreement, so minus the lawyer's fee, which was very reasonable, we did not lose much by taking the risk. Thanks again for everyone that provided advice and sent well wishes to my dad. They made him feel a lot better. And guys, even though this is an unfortunate and not really satisfying update, I can also understand the dad of OP, because this is indeed a very stressful situation, and if I would be as old as him, I would probably not bother with this as well. What is your take on this? Would you continue fighting? Let us know in the comments. And the next one is titled, "Airbnb host is requesting $600 for damages we did not do. My location, Ohio, Airbnb location, Colorado. I stayed in an Airbnb from August 18th to the 22nd. Tonight the host messaged me requesting $600 in damages for cigarette smoke indoors, vomit, holes in walls and ceilings, unauthorized pet hair, blood and other personal hygiene related things like a used pet stuffed into a vent, etc., but we did none of those damages. We should have taken a video when we checked out, but we didn't. The home has security cameras on both entrances and along the side of the house. The photos they provided are not the state of the house that we left and are not time-stamped. One of the photos shows a bottle of liquor that we did not purchase or consume. They also mentioned that the front door key has been missing for quite some time, long before we checked in. They don't know who has it. I don't have $600 and this is not my mess. What do I do? And a user in the comments said, they stupidly admitted that they don't have all keys for the house accounted for. Press that conversation, ask them if it is possible someone else may have taken those keys and entered the building. Document the communication. And another person suggested, don't pay, they will take it through Airbnb claims, which will give you an opportunity to tell your side of the story. It helps that they waited over a week to claim damages. That is a long time when many other people had access to the house. Just make sure you respond to Airbnb in a timely manner and make it clear you didn't do this, and if you have proof of the missing key situation in writing, that is even better. Don't speak to the owner outside of the Airbnb platform. And guys, I would love to know, have you ever used Airbnb? And if so, were your experiences positive? I gotta say, usually I don't really use Airbnb much, I much rather take hotel rooms. However, my experience with Airbnb so far has been pretty positive. Either way, if you have watched until here, please don't forget to post some star emojis in the comments. Thank you very much for your support, it means the world to me and it helps out my channel tremendously. Update to the Airbnb story. Well, after I refused to pay and they reviewed the evidence, Airbnb decided not to pursue me financially. They told me there was not sufficient evidence that I did the damages, so instead they banned me from the platform for life for doing the damages. It is incredibly annoying, but frankly, I don't care that much. My husband can create an account if we ever need one again, if we ever decide to give them money again. Moral of the story, take pictures and videos when you leave your Airbnb or VRBO rentals. Also, F Airbnb. Well guys, I'm not sure about the reaction of the OP here. I mean, Airbnb decided not to pursue him or her financially, so I would say that's a pretty good thing. And about getting banned from Airbnb, who cares? As she said, her husband can obviously just make a second account or something, so they don't have to care about that. And guys, just a little warning for the next one. This does not have a proper update, but I thought it was just too interesting not to read it out to you. And in case there will be an update in the future, I will of course post it in a video. The story is titled, Man from Texas with an amputee fetish impersonated a doctor and had me in a cast for almost a year. I believe his intent was to permanently disable me. This really is so complex and I don't know where to start or how to explain, but let me try. I have a pretty solid following on Instagram that follow me because of my injuries. I am a type 1 diabetic with osteopenia and I am often in a cast because of it. The cast fetish community has really taken a liking to me. I broke my ankle originally 3 years ago. My original doctor had me start walking on it a month or two into treatment, and when I came back in, he x-rayed me and told me that he made a mistake and that I needed to see a different doctor. Also, that my ankle was worse because of my medical history. The doctors did not feel comfortable with me having surgery and instead kept me in a cast for 9 months. I had to go in every few weeks and each time was several $100s. In December of 2018, my x-rays were still abnormal and they wanted to do an MRI, but when it came down to it, they wanted $2,500 and I simply could not afford it. At the time I was in a walking cast and the doctor allowed me to switch over to a boot. So I went into a boot for several months after that and just stopped going to the doctor. At the end of 2019, I fell and re-broke it. I posted online upset about my situation and worried that I would not be able to afford treatment. A girl reached out to me and explained that she knew this doctor in El Paso who helped her when no one else would. He worked on both sides of the border, both in Juarez and in El Paso. She gave me his number. When I called, he mentioned his name and that he was with a medical group in his voicemail. I left him a message and sent him a text. He was very straight and to the point, a way a doctor would be, asked me my medical situation and my history. And he explained to me that surgery was out of the question and that I would need to be in a cast for some time. He offered to take me over the border for imagining to save money on both the MRIs and the X-rays. This seemed like a great solution as it was cheaper to travel to El Paso and then to even stay in Vegas and see a doctor here locally. So I made a trip down there. I travel for work, so it was not a big deal to do so. He offered to meet me at my hotel in between surgeries at the hospital. He told me at first that he was an orthopedic surgeon. I thought this was so very kind of him. We met and he reviewed the last x-rays that I took in Vegas and explained to me that it was going to be another long breaking process like I had before. He told me the best thing we could do was to put me in a long leg cast for 6 months. He said that we needed to completely immobilize my knee so that my ankle would not move at all and disturb any healing process. This, also with the way he explained it, made sense. He showed up to the room in scrubs with a doctor bag. Nothing seemed weird or out of place at the time. He had to get back to work and told me he would come back the next day with the materials to apply the cast. Told me he would be willing to help me pro bono because of my situation. He explained to me that I was a high risk for needing an amputation, again something doctors have told me in the past. He came back the next day again, in between surgeries, to apply the cast. The first interaction was very doctor/patient-like, but this time seemed a bit more intimate, but I admit it felt good to have a doctor seen into me. And a surgeon nonetheless, who was so kind to offer to help me for free. This should have been my first red flag, but it seemed innocent enough. He told me that I needed to be non-weight bearing for 6 months in the long leg cast, and I asked him if we would have imaging done in between, and he told me he would take me to his clinic in Juarez during our next visit. But that with my history of slow healing, that it would be best to avoid the radiation, that he knew from so many past patients that it was going to take time. After he applied the cast, he mentioned how tired he was and he was not looking forward to going back to surgery. I decided to shoot my shot a bit and asked him if he wanted to just lie with me for a bit. We didn't do anything sexual, just laid there, but there was a major spark. And at some point he accidentally said "I love you." He made up some excuse for it, but that thought stuck with me. I trusted him. Before our next visit we started messaging more, but as friends with very flirty vibes. He asked me if I felt the same spark he did, and I must admit I did. It felt naughty talking to my doctor like that, but I liked it, and he said that because he was seeing me for free and that I was technically not a patient on record, that he was not violating any rules. Not only did I have a doctor willing to help save my leg for free, but he was into me. He gave off very nerdy virgin vibes, and so I was a bit more forward with the flirting from that point forward. My next trip out, he had very little time. The plan was to take me to Juarez for an x-ray that visit, but it did not work out with his schedule. He was always talking about how many hours he had to work and how crazy the hospital got. Again, I was thankful for his time and help and did not complain. We had plans to meet up again before I left, but then this is where things get really weird. He told me that he had an abuse case come up. There was a 1-year-old baby who came in with several broken bones. He himself had a baby, and so this was very upsetting for him. The father of the baby was there and the abuse was clearly from him. My doctor was giving him a lot of attitude and the father shoulder checked him. At that point the doctor saw red and started beating the crap out of him. According to the doctor, no charges were going to be pressed against him. He explained El Paso is pretty flexible on rules compared to most places, and that the hospital team and the military police would not cause trouble for him, as the father was clearly the bad guy. He was so disappointed in himself and hated himself for what he did, but I saw him as a hero and told him the guy deserved it. It was then that he really started to manipulate me and my feelings towards him. But because of this we did not meet up again that trip, and then Corona happened. He did not want me traveling as I was a higher risk with my diabetes, so I came up with a solution to have him just ship me the materials for the cast changes. He told me that I should avoid as much radiation as possible anyways, and that it was going to be a slow process. And the thing is, I knew how to cast. I had been in so many medical and recreational casts before. So I was confident in myself, but he did not trust the idea at first. And then I applied one with material that I had already and showed him. And by the way guys, just on a side note, have you ever heard of recreational casts? I gotta say that's a first for me, and unfortunately I tried to Google it what that is, but the Google search did not really bring up any results. From then on out, he let me do the cast changes as it was better than me risking getting the virus. In this time he lost his job and it turned out he was not actually a doctor, he was a resident. He told me that he was a big shot surgeon in the UK but came back to the US to be with his family. In the UK he said you only needed a bachelor to become a doctor, so he had to do his residency again, but it was worth it to him. So many times I questioned things, but he always had answers ready and his stories just made sense to me in a very odd way. So at this point it turned out he was not actually a doctor, but a medical professional who would perform surgeries in Juarez, still at his clinic. Not sure if this changes anything. At first he claimed to be a doctor and I have text messages of him doing so, but as things continued he was just a medical professional. But I still trusted him and at this point was falling for him. Once the virus died down, he had me go for local x-rays and then meet him in Beaumont. He told me he was working there evaluating patients who had been injured during a blast of sorts at a factory. At this point he was my boyfriend first and doctor second. Fast forward, we had 2 more trips together. He was sending me cast supplies and other medical supplies as I started having other medical problems. Turns out he legit owned some sort of medical supply company and had access to these things, but I think that they were only things a doctor should be able to get, like IV Zofran and the kind of pill bottles they have at the pharmacy. He sent me Wellbutrin, Zofran, gabapentin and other medications and became my doctor for not only my leg but other medical issues as well. During this time I was hospitalized several times for cyclic vomiting syndrome, but the medication he sent me actually helped me. The amount of stuff he sent me I thought only a doctor could have access to. I never really questioned that he was lying to me because every time I did for a moment he did something that would click in my head to be real. Fast forward, it's been 8 months so far that he had me in a cast, not walking at all. My leg has completely shriveled up and is extremely weak at this point. During our last trip I found out that not only is he married, but he was not and never has been a doctor. That he has an amputee/stump fetish and according to his wife he has tricked 8 other girls into thinking he was a doctor. He has been hospitalized several times in the psych ward, which I knew, but he told me it was just for depression, but I'm not sure if he actually thought he was a doctor and was trying to help me while getting off with his sick fetish, or if he intended to hurt me in the end. During our time he often told me that if I was amputated that he would love me the same. He told me he would take me to Juarez to do the surgery himself so that it was done right and that he would take care of me. He even had me do an arm cast for fun to pretend I was amputated for a night, something I knew my online fans would love, so I agreed. Because of this, I now feel like his entire intention for casting me for so long was to either permanently disable me or cause me to need an amputation. I've known a few guys with amp fetishes/devotees and some have some very twisted fantasies. I believe if things continued and if the virus never happened and the border was not shut down, that he would have taken me for an MRI and would have convinced me to have the surgery, as this was mentioned several times. The proof that I have is screenshots of him claiming to be a doctor over text, picture of him in his scrubs, the message his wife sent me saying that he has done this to 8 other girls and a video of us with another doctor doing a live virtual training as he claimed to be a doctor with a clinic. I am now going in to see a real doctor to see if I have any damage done to my ankle other than it being stick skinny and weak. I live in Vegas, most of our interactions happen in Texas, but one time he came to Vegas. Can I sue him for damages? Would it be a criminal case as he was impersonating a doctor at first and then later on a medical professional? Do I have to go after him in Texas? And a user in the comments said, you need to start by going to the police. He did a number of things that are illegal. If he did not have prescribing privileges, then he was illegally diverting medicine to you. He was also likely breaking the law by practicing medicine without a license. You may be able to sue him in civil court as well, but I would start with calling the police. And another person said, you need to call the police in both Las Vegas and El Paso, file police reports and then cooperate with the district attorneys in both jurisdictions to whatever extent you feel comfortable. The following is not legal advice. It sounds like this man was grooming you for abuse and even made you a participant in your abuse. Grooming involves lowering inhibitions, normalizing inappropriate acts and pushing responsibility onto the victim. Victims often feel too ashamed that they let themselves be abused and therefore avoid reporting the abuse or discussing events with the DA. This is intentional on the part of the groomer/abuser, you don't have to give him that power. Yeah guys, and as I mentioned before, unfortunately since this is such a new story, there hasn't been an update yet, but in case I see any updates soon, I will obviously keep you posted. I hope you don't mind, because I thought this story was just too insane and too interesting not to read it, even though there was no update. And the next one is titled, Cat with no collar repeatedly coming into my house, attacking my cat and causing property damage. I've trapped it repeatedly, but it keeps being returned to the owners. Council refuses to tell me who they are, but I want to recoup vet and property damage costs. What do I do? Pretty much all in the title. This a-hole cat has been coming onto our property for at least a year now. It was sometimes mean to our cat but kept it to the garden. I'm not the kind of person to go trapping cats for no good reason, so while I felt a bit sorry for my cat, he was getting picked on his own turf, we let it go. Then this a-hole cat escalated to the point where he was coming in my home through the cat flap, eating our cat's food and attacking our cat. We contacted the council and ended up renting a cat trap from them. First time we caught it, the council officers were off duty, so we took it to the RSPCA. Apparently the owners were contacted by the council, who returned their cat, found the owners through the microchip and notified them to keep it off our property. Recently it started coming back, so we trapped it again. This time it was collected by council officers. The a-hole was back again yesterday and attacked my cat and damaged the window screen, which will need to be completely replaced. My cat needed to be seen by a vet. I have wished since the start that the council or RSPCA would tell us who the owners are, so we could go and have a civil conversation instead of having to repeatedly trap this cat. The cat is an a-hole, but still just a cat, and I don't enjoy traumatizing it or presumably making the owners worry when it goes missing. Though I question at this point how many Fs they give, if any, but of course they cannot. None of our neighbors know whose cat it is. Even if I trap the cat again, I still won't know who it belongs to, so I won't know who to approach about getting my vet/window bills paid. Is there anything I can do short of trapping the cat and putting a collar with a GPS tracker on it? Would I even be allowed to? And a user in the comments said, we had a similar issue and we put in a cat flap that will only unlock for our cat's microchip, which stopped the cat coming into the house. We then got a dog, no more strange cats in our backyard. And another person said, I did not know that was a thing, but that is genius. A few years back I came home to a mini pig in my living room, snuggled up to my good-for-nothing guard dog. I don't own a mini pig. It occurs to me now that I have an alarming number of personal anecdotes that involve animals I don't own making their way into my domicile, even a horse once. Update on a-hole cat. Found the owners, who it turns out own 3 other cats, effectively all of the a-hole cats in the neighborhood. Thank you for all of the advice, especially to the user Skippy Spartan, who let me know I could request freedom of information to find out the cat's owner, which was precisely the info I was after and what I would have done had I not since fortuitously found out who the cat belongs to through the neighborhood grapevine. Turns out they also own the only other 3 cats we ever see in our yard, all of whom are notably aggressive and intrusive, though less so than OG a-hole cat. Stupidly enough though, I've dealt with neighborhood cats before and by and large they were not a-holes. I just assumed because all the cats we saw here were kind of a-holes that was normal outdoor cat behavior, and my expectations that it not be a constant cat version of Lord of the Flies in which my cat is Piggy in our backyard every day were unreasonably high. Now I find out that they all belong to the same household, who would need a special permit to own in excess of 2 cats and have already been notified to keep one of their cats off our property and not done so. Anyway, I guess the next step is to go over there sometime, apparently they've just left on holiday, and have as civilly, neighborly a conversation as possible that hopefully results in them keeping all their cats the hell off my property. If that fails, I will definitely look into the microchip specific cat flap you guys told me about, but our kitty, who was always tiny for a cat and thus easy prey for other cats, has recently been diagnosed with a terminal illness. His quality of life is still good, we will have him put to sleep when that changes, but I would like him to be able to spend his last months basking on our sunny deck, which he really loves to do, without being attacked if that is possible. And guys, unfortunately, we have already reached the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed today's stories, and if you haven't already, please also go to patreon.com/ripeyoutube, where I upload exclusive Reddit videos starting at just $3 a month. This is a great way to support me in case you are interested, and the chance for me to become independent from YouTube revenue. Thank you so much for watching, please don't forget to subscribe and like the video, and I hope to see you again tomorrow.